What's up, everybody? Metal Dave here, along with my co-host Jason McMaster, bringing you another episode of the Talk Louder podcast. Today, we are joined by vocalist Logan Olivero of Vesperian Sorrow. They are a Central Texas symphonic black metal band, I guess is maybe a fairly accurate description. They've been around for a long time, since the mid-90s. Logan is a recent addition. I think he's been with the band since about 2019 or so. Their current album is called Awaken the Greylight. It's out on Black Lion Records out of Sweden. You can find it just about anywhere. Just go online, look it up. Vesperian Sorrow, Awaken the Greylight. Really interesting dude, very creative. He's got his hands in a lot of cookie jars, and it was fun talking to him, finding out where his inspirations come from. He seems to me like one of those guys that starts a lot of projects because his mind is always racing. And
Correct.
Sometimes he finishes them, and sometimes he puts them on the back burner and comes back to them, but he's never just idling. It's just constant barrage of creativity, it sounds like.
Correct. I think that he's one of these sort of savants, but when you meet him, he's just a dude until you really start asking him about what's going on in his garage. You know what I mean? You open the garage and it's like, holy shit. You know, I'm talking about his mind and his instinct as far as being a creator. I have worked with him. We talk about it a little bit, but I've worked with him a few times, done shows, recording studio. He's on the Texas Metal Outlaws record that guitarist from Igniter, Robert Williams, put together with a bunch of different artists, and has pretty much everybody on it. And Logan was on that, and when I heard him sing, my mind was blown. I think he's done some cover song stuff, some parody stuff that I was involved with. I think we did a parody of, I don't remember what record it came out on. Shit, it might even been on Texas Metal Outlaws. I just don't recall now, but a cover of That's What Friends Are For, like Dionne Warwick. That's what friends are for. Yeah. And he I think he was the mastermind behind that, and I got asked to put a verse and a chorus on there. Shit is fucked up, man. But that's kind of where his mind is, and I guess you know that it makes sense, right? After meeting him and talking to him, it makes sense that he would come up with something like that.
Right.
So there's a few different facets and styles. The Hangman's Curse project we talk about at some length here, which is his like spaghetti western doom death metal band. It's barely metal, but it's such this weird concoction of priest robes and hoods with cowboy hats and hangman's noose around their necks, and they're playing this like kind of twangy, all minor key, sludgy kind of a thing, and all the themes are like hang 'em high and a fistful of dollars, and old scary sound. The guy is deep, and I have yet, and I say this a few times, I've yet to hear the latest Vesperian Sorrow record. Which I had the honor of. I've performed, actually, Dave. I don't know if you knew this. I've actually performed on a song on a Vesperian record in the past.
In the past, yeah.
And I believe Erica, who I replaced in Igniter, is also on, might even be the same song or a different song on the same record, where we did some cameos on a Vesperian Sorrow record, which is another really cool sort of leg on the monster, that is Vesperian Sorrow. I'm really glad that they. I like Donnie a lot, the long stay singer that Vesperian has had. It seems to be this kind of collective, as well as there's two main guys, Will the guitar player and Chris the drummer, but Donnie and Logan are friendly, so there's this whole working together to create this thing that is Vesperian Sorrow. But apparently this new record has all of these different, and Logan explains in depth about what's happening, but seems that they have created this. Where do you, what box of metal do you put this in?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot going on, and he makes
talking about Awaken the Greylight. Sorry.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting how Logan, because basically the band, the band itself was not on hiatus, but I think there was like a 12-year gap between recorded output. So there was this huge gap, but the band was quietly still working on material behind the scenes. They just weren't releasing anything. And then Logan steps in, and as a singer and a lyricist, and obviously a very creative person, he either took it upon himself or was tasked with the idea of sort of connecting the dots from the previous recorded output and bringing it up to speed on Awaken the Greylight. So he's kind of bringing some of the characters from the past into the future, or the present rather. And so I thought it was interesting that there was this much thought going into the idea of keeping this ongoing theme going for so many years, when they could have just maybe put out a record, said, hey, starting today, clean slate, let's go. They felt that it was important to hang on to some of the history that they've created and put in the time and the effort to sort of, again, bring the themes and some of the characters up to the present on Awaken the Greylight. So a lot of thought gone into
how they were able to focus with where Logan is coming from is amazing, an amazing feat. And after all you guys meet him, you'll understand. We had a little bit of Wi-Fi issue on his end of things, but it's tolerable. You guys have been cool about it. I should bring that up, that you guys, and I speak, you guys being you, listening and watching right now, you guys never bitch about our quality control as far as technical difficulties and things like that, and we appreciate that, because we're just Beavis and Butthead, man. We don't, it's not it's not about having the best sounding and looking product, even though I think that it's okay when you compare it. This project, this sort of talk louder thing that we've been doing for 3 years, we just crossed over 202 episodes with 2,000 subscribers, and it's not really about getting high numbers to us. It's about having interesting conversation with characters that or artists that we know you like, or artists that we just feel like have a crazy brain that we want to have on here,
Yeah.
So Logan definitely fits all. He checks all those boxes, and the guy. I start off with this in the interview today about how great of a singer. I mean, he's holding back. It's just, if you listen to what he's got going on, and he's not like not a lot of people know who he is, and he doesn't have a whole lot of records out there, but you're going to hear, as soon as you hear him sing, you're going to hear like 5 or 6 different voices.
Yeah.
Because he's a singer, he's got gutturals, the black metal, death metal thing, but the dude can sing Jeff Tate shit. The guy sounds like a trained voiceover / opera singer who can pretty much do anything with his voice, and we talk about that with him today. Some of you will be surprised at what might be his influences, and I wasn't surprised at all. So yeah.
Yeah, well, you would imagine that a guy that covers that much ground, his influences aren't going to be coming out of one box. So I admit I was the guy that was a little surprised by some of his influences, but the more we talked and the more I heard, the more I realized, oh, this makes perfect sense. And then I could think of it in a larger context also, going beyond just Logan. I mean, I listen to rock music and metal, and now that I think about it, I could, you know, I can see influences coming from all over the place. Not everybody just grows up worshiping Rob Halford. There's all kinds of.
It's not just. I mean, other than me, that's the only thing I worship is the Church of Rob Halford, card carrying member.
And by the way, you could do worse than growing up worshiping Rob Halford.
Through confessions here, but you're making valid points, and it's interesting because not all of his influences are going to be rock singers. I use that quote,
right,
you know, generically, rock singer. Oh, my influences are Bon Scott and Bon Jovi. You know, it's not. Yeah. That's not it. He's not coming from there at all. So yeah, I loved it. It was a great conversation.
Yeah. One of those guys I think you can accurately call a true artist, you know, dabbles in a little bit of everything and does a lot of it very, very well. So not just a one-trick pony. Happy to have him today on the show. Logan Olivero from Vesperian Sorrow on the Talk Louder podcast.
I have seen you perform. I've worked with you quite a few times over the years. And we've even sort of been on recording projects together.
We have.
And we can talk about that a little bit. I just want to kind of jump into the middle of the lake with no swimming lessons and just say, this seems random to listeners and people watching. The first time I heard your voice, I don't even remember what it was, to be honest, because it doesn't really matter. What I recall was being completely blown away at how good of like a singer you are, as in like proper vibrato and proper. You sound almost trained, and you know, whether people know who you are as an artist, as a singer, as a writer, as a performer, whatever it is that you call yourself, because you seem to be just an artist that does whatever to scratch itches that you have.
Yeah.
Are you trained? Did you go to school for this?
No, actually, I think there's always been like musicians in my family, like my grandfather on my mom's side, and my mother had been in a few like Mexican groups where she was singing, you know, mariachi ranchero style music.
Yeah.
But you know, me personally, I really never had gotten any training aside from just practicing a lot, listening to music over the years, singing in my car, singing at home. I think it was always something when I was a kid, I was always doing, I guess they had put me in, when I was in elementary school, put me in plays or little musical numbers. So, and I grew up, they put me in 3 different religions. So I was a Methodist, Baptist, and Catholic at just whatever was available. So they all had singing too. So they always put me in there, little, you know, choir or whatever. But no, it was just something that I worked on throughout the years. And when I started playing music in the 90s, I wasn't actually singing. I was like either playing guitar or bass and singing. But the people that we got to sing, I was like, no, hold on. This is how you do it. This is how you do it. let me go. And so it just went in on one of my first bands. Like, I guess I'm going to be the singer on this one. So.
Wow, that's interesting because
that's ended up being that way.
That's kind of how it happened for me too. As far as I was a bass player, all the singers that we always had, you know, they were just friends. Hey, I'm a singer, and they'd come over and sing, and me and the drummer would look at each other and go, well, we're not singers and we're better than you. So how are you the singer? You know, not that we were throwing stones at our friends. It just happened that way. and you know, you were just forced to become the singer, kind of like you said. Now,
Yeah, I guess it's kind of, you get a better ear for it.
Well, you don't
you're
even
playing an
know
instrument.
this was happening. Yeah, this was all happening. I don't know about you, but for my situation, it was happening when I didn't know shit. You know, I was just 16 and 17 years old, and I don't know anything about what I'm doing. I can barely tune the guitar, you know. So it's kind of like you just know, or it's something that I felt strongly opinionated about, or I was following my nose, my ears, you know.
Yeah.
And it sounds like a similar situation. And could be, I mean, plenty of drummers and bass players become frontmen, you know, that had no intention of that. Where can we're all over the place. There's no rules here, but where can someone go hear you sing right now?
Nowhere. Just with Vesperian, really.
No, I mean any recordings anywhere, like things we've done.
Well,
we've
I mean,
done.
really. I mean,
yeah.
It's. I mean, whatever's on YouTube, I guess. Some people have posted like older demos of mine, and I mean, Against the Plague stuff is some of the stuff that I've had. Some of the Hangman's Curse or the Golden Soth. It's just on like YouTube, really, and there's some, of course, like maybe the work that I did with then the Texas Metal Outlaws with Robert Williams. I mean, that's on YouTube, Spotify. So, and just the Vesperian. I mean, Vesperian has really been my way of getting all this stuff, and it's similar to, like, I've known the guys for a long time, and they've known me, and they're like, well, why don't you sing? How come you're not on any projects? Like, how come you're not on any full length, albums? Like, I'm on some here and there, but it just really, this was kind of like the most work I've done with this past album,
Right.
Yeah.
Everything else has just been a bunch of demos, and, I've had one full length, but there was a co-singer on that. So.
Yeah. So for people that may not be familiar,
everything's me on this.
So for people that may not be familiar with Vesperian Sorrow, the band's been around since the late 90s, but you're relatively new to the band as the front man, I think 2019 or so. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Vesperian, they were around like 94. That's when they kind of they had another name, and switched over around like 95, 96 to Vesperian. That's where I kind of knew the guys. They started kind of doing shows in the South Texas area and all that. So I actually joined them around 2010 for a separate project. And they're like, hey, we want to do something different. We have a bunch of music that we're working on. So I spent a good few months working on some conceptual new ideas, and started doing some tracking. And then they decided, hey, I think we just kind of want to do Vesperian, there's a lot of mind changing in the band. And I'm like, no, that makes sense, but I can't do it right now. So, maybe another time. And so, and it was very amicable. I'm like, oh yeah, no, that's good. Yeah. Talk to Donnie and see if Donnie could do this, And so around 2019, they're like, hey, remember that stuff we were working on? Okay, so we're still working on it. And we'd like to know just if by any chance, I'm like, yeah, no, I'm game. Let's do it. If it's just about done, I can go ahead and step in and finish it off. So
Donnie being their sort of longtime singer, still involved or not?
He was involved into maybe about 20 I want to say maybe 2017, 16.
Okay.
And they had another fill-in vocalist. I forget his name. He was in a real decent band in San Antonio. Jake, I want to say Jake is his name. And he was in there temporarily, and I guess he had to go and focus on his stuff. And that's when they called me. The stars aligned where I was like, I'm not super busy right now, so let's go ahead and do this. And the stuff that I am doing, let me just put it in the back burner for right now. But
well,
there's I love Donnie, and he's the vocalist for Vesperian Sorrow that I would watch, and
right.
And so, there's some lyrics. I wrote all the lyrics to this album, and I wrote this entire concept. I'd spent like 4 years creating something that could be turned into a novel, and there are some references to stuff that Donnie had put in previous albums. So
can you tell us a little bit about this, just for people listening? New Vesperian Sorrow is what we're talking about. It's not out. It's not even out yet. We're sort of getting
it's out. It's out.
Wait, is it out? It is out.
It is out. It's out there.
Awaken the Greylight, correct?
Yeah, it is. Awaken the Greylight's out there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So to Jason's point, though, can you sort of take us from the thematic references that you're, maybe from the previous era up to where we are now with Awaken the Greylight?
Absolutely.
Connect those dots a bit.
It's kind of like when you go back to the old writing, I think Donnie had a lot of self-contained stories in the albums, up to I think Regenesis, where it was more an entire concept. So what I basically did is create a new universe that was more cohesive, that brought in all the other kind of little folklore stories from the previous albums and turned them into events. It's kind of like, if you look into old literature, the idea of something like Beowulf or Gilgamesh being word of mouth stories, people that would sit around a campfire. So that's kind of what I turned Donnie's stories into, like these kind of like tales that harken to a particular event. And so I brought them into, and I think in the first song of the album, second song rather, you see a lot of different names, storm winds and all these different things that Donnie had created to explain why we're at where we're at right now with this album, as far as the lore of the story. So it is the first part of a 3-part series. Hopefully we get to those. And it was my way of putting pressure on the band. I was like, hey, this is just the first part, so we got to do more, So, of course, when you talk to the guys and you talk to Will and Chris, I'm like, so what's Donnie writing about? And they're like, I don't know. It's Donnie's thing. So I had to kind of go in there and disseminate what was being spoken about. And then I said, all right, let me create my universe and use those as kind of semi-reference points, and at least just use the name of something. So if I'm telling a long narrative about an event or cataclysmic event that happened, I would utilize one of the names that Donnie had come up for a song title, So that's what history actually is. Donnie's stories were kind of like what the people in the village would consider it to be, what their mythology did. So it was kind of like, like the Gilgamesh approach, or like, studying. I used to study a lot of old theology and take like a social historical context of what something like the book Revelations was talking about. And a lot of it points to Nero, the events of the fall of Rome. But the Bible tells something a lot more, fantastical.
Right.
But that's kind of what I did with at least song number 2. And then after that, allowed for it. It was kind of like, all right, here's what song number 2 is. It's kind of a catch up of everything. Let's move forward. Here's what this new story is. We're still going to utilize some of these aspects, Regenesis, storm winds, and some of the other concepts that were were kind of fleshed out a little bit.
Yeah. You have a background as a bass player, and I don't know what other instruments you might play.
Guitar, yeah.
Did you bring any music to this album, or are you exclusively the vocalist and the lyricist on this?
It was for first time I was just kind of like bringing just vocals and vocal arrangements, and there are certain times where I'd say, hey, give me the guitar real quick, give me the bass, so I can come up with a vocal melody for that. And so the vocal melodies were designed on guitar. They were constructed that way, because there are some that this has already been written. What am I going to be able to like fill in? Because black metal, death metal, to put in clean vocals into that can often be a challenge. And
are you dead set on a certain vocal style for this extreme music, or because I haven't heard the record yet, so I know I'm admitting that I'm ill prepared for this chat, but it doesn't matter because of your world is what I'm interested in, and not just this one thing, but this is part of it. I feel like I've heard you use quite a few different voices through different projects and things. But on this record, is it a half and half? Are you using gutturals? Are you using clean vocals? Is it giving the whole gamut, for whatever poetry needed, or you know what I mean? Because this lyric and that lyric might call for a cleaner feel and vocal tone. And then when it gets to this brutality part, you're going to want to switch gears and go another way. Is it mix match like that as to whatever makes sense poetically, or what?
Yeah, it is. And it also pushes certain things where there's like, one would think certain kind of vocals would go here, but we don't go that way. We kind of say, hey, let's kind of push against that. There are several instances of that. There's some parts that are like, oh, well, of course. But that's the thing about Vesperian, old Vesperian, Chris and Will. There's times where I gave them like 4 things to work with, and here's 4 different things. We recorded them all, and then they have to decide which ones they're going to use out of those. Will's like, well, he's not a huge fan of combining vocals or doing like I guess synchronized black metal, death metal, or he doesn't like combining. And Chris loves that. So we kind of have to, there was a lot of compromise. Then I'd go and muck it up further when they decide, and I hear said like, I don't know, that sounds like trash, guys. Let me do another take. But there's within the clean vocal style, there's like 5 or 10 different variations of those. So we had to pick which fit well with the idea, with the album, which is what's not gonna like stick out like a sore thumb. And some did, and some were just like, fuck it, let's just do it like that. Let's put that in there. This sounds blatant. This sounds just like completely out of left field, which is fine. It doesn't have to fit the norms. With a band that's been going on this long, we definitely don't have to like fit into a certain little box. So there's some parts that I'm like, oh, this sounds like a black metal part, but they said, let's do death metal vocals over that. Let's do guttural stuff. And then within each style, like I said, black metal, death metal, I can go in and, use a different part of my throat, or, different part of my mouth, my head, you as a vocal, your head's like kind of like a speaker,
Yeah.
So what style am I going to, and so you'll hear about like 10 different styles within a song.
Wow.
Layered. It's weird. And so a lot of the interviews and people from the label were asking me if it's all me. I'm like, yeah, it is,
Yeah, what I've heard, from the new album is exactly what you're saying. And to Jason's point earlier, I hear the whole gamut of your vocal range and ability. And so I was going to ask you, being a metal guy, let's go all the way back to when you first started singing and even up to today. Being a metal guy, I'm going to assume that you have some appreciation for guys like Jeff Tate and Bruce Dickinson, and Bonnie James Dio and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Who in your list of vocal idols wouldn't necessarily fit the mold that people would expect based on this type of music? Do you have any like oddball vocal heroes that you've sort of, borrowed from, maybe even subtly?
Okay, so I used to say that, and I'll still say this still holds true today. A lot of the influence comes from watching 70s and 80s cartoons. The bad guys always had these cool voices, like Skeletor and Cobra Commander and all that. Those guys were very metal to me. But I listen to a lot of like David Byron from Uriah Heep. Love his voice. So to me, I was like,
were you at the show? Did you go see him play recently?
No, I missed it. And it's something, another regret. I've been so busy with life stuff,
Right.
and it's like and I always find out about these shows like the day after through Facebook when everyone's, but yeah, David Byron, a lot of, let's see. Well, Willie Nelson, grew up listening to a lot of Willie Nelson. A lot of I'm trying to think. Elvis, of course, is up there. Grew up listening to that. So all that really gets incorporated. Arthur Brown.
Wow.
I love Arthur Brown's vocals. So I tend to, there's little things that to this day where I'm listening, I'm like, what the hell is he doing in there?
Right.
So when it's like non-metal stuff, there's things like that I'm often like, listening to the vocals and trying to figure out what they're doing.
Well, people are still trying to figure out what Bob Dylan is doing.
Yeah, I can't to this day. I think Robert Williams was showing me this video years ago of him doing the "We Are the World," and it's like this whole like 30-minute session of him just trying to do one line,
Right.
Where's the choice we're making?
Yeah, that's really, really fucked up and strange to me that you brought that up, because before I came in here, I was watching that special, that documentary. Have you seen that yet?
Okay.
It's called like The Greatest Night in Pop or something.
It's pretty good.
And it's fucking excellent. It's like the biggest stars from 1984, 85. And it's got that's what that stuff Robert Williams is showing you, sending you videos of Dylan trying to, and they show him and they put him right in the middle. He's standing next to fucking Prince and Diana Ross and you know what I mean? The Stevie Wonder, and
Stevie Wonder's there.
So he's just like staring in space and not singing anything, and everyone else is just going crazy, nailing it. And he's just, so that him being pulled aside, them trying to show him how it's going to go. I think he was just nervous.
I think Prince was actually a holdout, because I think that was one of the takeaways from the whole documentary. Was he was one of the biggest stars of the day, but he chose not to participate for some reason. I might be mistaken, but I feel like I remember that as like sticking with me. But yeah, you're right. They isolated Dylan, and they're like, okay. And Lionel Richie, by the way, is in charge of corralling all these people. So he's like,
wasn't he? Yeah, it was him and Stevie Wonder, where they're just coaching him on like, like, all right, and they're giving a lot of like positive feedback to him. Oh, Bob, really good. Let's do this again. Let's do this again.
he just needed to be reminded he's Bob fucking Dylan, and he can do whatever he wanted as long as he got the phrasing right. It'd be fine. So
speaking of cartoon voices,
Yeah, see, he's a character, but he's not. He's Bob Dylan. There's only
like Gargamel.
one Bob Dylan, right?
I like that Logan brings that up. I don't know that we've ever had anyone on the show who cites cartoon voices as a vocal.
Hold on,
yeah.
hold the phone.
You talk about Scooby-Doo all the time.
In my lessons, I always thought that like Paul Bailoff, original Exodus singer. The waves have got to the you know, the waves have got to the ruby, you know, and I always thought that was like,
Scooby-Doo.
if you really listen to it, he's doing like Scooby-Dooby-Doo. He's not really a singer, he's a vocalist. So he's doing this, he has this high thing and he's got this low guttural thing. He's like shouty thing, but he's not like going, you know, ba 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 and da da da. He's using everything in between, and you listen to the next song, and he does the same thing. But I really love
from Manila Road sounds like Skeletor, like just dead on, like Skeletor. You know?
Yeah, and I always thought that like early death metal, were voices taken from the, for lack of a better term, the possessed zombies, if you will, from Evil Dead.
Yeah.
The sort of burp and slurp, you know, like Killjoy. That's what Killjoy sang like all the time.
Yeah. It's, what was it? I would say one of the first death metal songs to me was that Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas, the River Bottom Nightmare Band.
Yeah.
You have that bear that comes out and they're singing. He's like, River Bottom Nightmare Band.
Wow.
And that song jams. Always wanted to cover that.
Yeah.
That was the 70. That's another good vocalist I like. A good singer-songwriter was Paul Williams. I love
oh my God. Yeah.
Paul Williams.
Wow.
People like this guy writes the saddest songs ever.
Yeah, very interesting influences, full circle here. But what I was going to say to finish a thought, in my lessons, young singers that come in, you know, it doesn't matter age, but they're kids for the most part. One of the things I ask them, I say, how long have you been singing? You know, they say never, or, you know, I sing in the car, in the shower, at church, whatever, right? And I say, can you do cartoon voices? And they flip out because they're not realizing that a lot of rock vocal is truthfully based off of, you know, what you can do, like silly shit you can do with your voice, that you realize you're just doing Mickey Mouse all the way down to Cookie Monster.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I stand corrected. You do say that often, that, you know, there's a Scooby-Doo element. And, you know, now that we're talking about it, I can hear like Popeye and stuff like that in a lot of...
Bon Scott is Popeye.
Bon Scott is Popeye. Yeah, exactly.
That's Popeye. Yeah, that's Popeye shit.
Yeah, exactly.
and he was one... I mean, dude, what the fuck is David Lee Roth doing on the first Van Halen record?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's mad scientist shit, and he didn't even realize he was creating a whole fucking thing with just all of the you know, caw-caw, you know, whatever he's doing.
Yeah, he's the
craziest shit.
Welker. He could have been a cartoon, like, you know, voice actor with the amount of noises that he's able to like do, you know. David Lee Roth was just amazing at that.
Yeah, anyone who hasn't done it yet, they need to do themselves a favor and listen to, it's on YouTube, the a cappella vocal track for Running with the Devil.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It is the best shit you'll hear all day, all week, all year. And it's mad genius. It's fucking unbelievable of what's going on there. And so, yeah, it kind of ties in with exactly what we're talking about. Speaking of voiceover, did I read that you do voiceover or did voiceover stuff?
Yeah, I threw that in as just a little, I did actually, it was weird. When I moved to this area and I wanted to go into voice acting, I gave up right away, but I only did a little, because the competition is super high. Right. And, but I did stuff for like Whole Foods. So funny.
Wow.
Story. I did for Whole Foods, and they were kind of turned off at first because they said I didn't sound Hispanic enough. They were inferring that.
Wow.
They wanted a Hispanic sounding person, But no, I modified it for him. I was like, what do you want? You want East LA? Do you want South Texas? You know, you want some guy from Arizona that looks like Snoopy's cousin, you know, like,
Right.
what do you want? And, you know, hey man, like, no, when I go over to, you know, get the groceries with my family, you know, like you
Wow.
gotta get, you know, I was like, you know, like what, and so they love that. And, the guy's like asking me if I could do different voices, you know. I was like, it's hard when I'm asked to do it, but I'll you know, he was asking for Homer Simpson and Regis Feldman, you know, because they're having a ball with me. But I was like, yeah, I could do a bunch of that stuff, but I'll have to just be, it's like spur of the moment, you know. I can't,
Right.
you know, I still choke, even on stage. I still choke, you know. So everything has to be kind of like fresh and spur of the moment. If I'm on stage and someone says something like, hey, remember it's so and so's birthday, I'm like, oh shit. You know, that'll be in my mind the whole time.
That's totally normal.
Distraction,
yeah. And then I'll forget to do it, and then I'll see the person that asked me to do the shout out, and I'll run away from them because I realize I fucked up and didn't say happy birthday to grandma, you know.
Yeah. Or remember to thank the band before. I'm like, oh, what's the name of that fucking band? Unless I know the band, you know, that's the thing I fear the most. So I'll have to take notes and put them on the stage.
On the set. Oh, dude, welcome to my world. That's it's normal. I've realized that it's fucking normal. Like there's notes on people's set list. I'll come up after them and I'll see their set list and it says, hey, don't forget to do your laundry after the show tonight. It says it on the fucking set list. Shit like that.
Somebody puts down the grocery list instead of the set list. Well, so speaking of being on stage, are you guys, are you gonna tour this album or at least do so? You got any gigs coming up? I know touring is a pretty lofty proposition with the expense and all. But any gigs to promote Awaken the Greylight?
No, we do want to do at least one good album release show, and either at Come and Take It or Lost Well, probably leading to Lost Well because it's into just seeing who just the stars kind of have to align, and maybe when it's not so hot, try to do that. We'd love to get on some festivals because like touring right now just isn't really, I mean, post-pandemic touring and slightly before pandemic, I mean, touring really wasn't what was, you know, the thing that a lot of bands that had been doing this for a while were looking to do anymore. It's just, I recommend touring to any band that is just starting and you're like 21, 22, go out and tour, have a good time, lose a lot of money, and get mad at each other.
Yeah.
But experience that because you need that. You need to do that.
You just described college.
Yeah. It's and I went on my first tour after college, so it was like, and it sucked, but I would never trade it for anything else because that experience really taught me about the business and taught me about what we do. But so I don't feel like we are gonna tour. We've had some offers, European tours or whatever, like short-term ones, but even with that, there's just so many logistics that it becomes this mess, and even so much of not just money, but like just there's a lot of mental fatigue and there's a lot of things that you're going to be jeopardizing. You know, it's like, is this band even going to exist after we do this? You know, So we'd love to do something. I mean, there's stuff like Hell's Heroes, which would be fantastic to get on, or, you know, since we have a different sound on the album, I mean, even something along the lines of Prog Power would be great.
Yeah.
Because this is definitely the most prog power friendly album we've had.
I think it's important that people realize the different faces of Vesperian, who's been around a long time in this area, Central Texas, and has been mainly drummer Chris, and guitar Will. And I feel like, for the most part, extreme metal is the generic term, I know, but it seems to be, you know, the needle moves around a little bit, and the way you're talking about this new record, I feel like the needle kind of is starting to almost crack the glass.
Yeah, I think it is. We could call it extreme metal. I say this album kind of, because it's been so long since we put something out. I think it pays homage to just 90s style music, you know, 90s style metal, you know, from Europe. You know, it's got a bit of that melodic death metal in there. It's got that melodic symphonic black metal, and it's definitely got a lot of stuff that reminds me of bands like, you know, Stradivari. You know, so it's a very 90s sounding album. It pays tribute to a lot of that sound.
I'm sorry, did you say Stradivarius?
Yeah, I love Stradivarius.
Yeah, your Wi-Fi is a little sketchy, but
it is weird. I don't know what's going on with it.
It hadn't been too terrible, so it's all good. We're kind of used to it.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I know exactly what you're talking about. Now I really need to go hear the record, and I apologize for not digging in deeper.
Do you think, I was going to ask you, since you mentioned Europe, and I hear obviously a lot of very obvious European influences in the music. Do you know off the top of your head what country in Europe might be your strongest foothold, or is it just kind of across the board? Do you have one place in particular that seems to really latch onto you guys?
We get the best reviews from Finland, I think, right now. I think Finland really likes our stuff, and I like Finnish stuff too. I mean,
yeah,
it makes sense. You know, I do like, I think Nightwish was out of Finland. Mm-hmm. You know, old Nightwish.
They love music in Finland. They just love art and music.
Yeah.
So if it's fucked up, meaning, you know, out of this world, they probably like it even more.
Meaning good. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we'll be one of those bands like Manowar that, you know, they'll play a small little bar over here, but, you know, they're playing like stadiums in Germany or in
that's exactly why I asked, because I could see you guys attracting a broader audience. I think, you know, Europe in general just has a greater appreciation for metal, and especially once you start adding in the symphonic elements or the power metal type influence or whatever, because it's also based on classical. And Europe has such a rich history in classical music, more so than the United States. You know, United States has a rich history of jazz and country music and rock and roll.
Yeah.
But Europe has this blues. Yeah. But Europe has this, I mean, centuries old history and ties to classical music. And I think a lot of the type of music that you guys play and many other bands of your genre, I could just see it having a more natural, wider audience in Europe, maybe, than Texas or the United States.
Hey, what was the band, just because I'm half brain dead right now, what was the band you mentioned them earlier, and I've seen them live, and if you remember, I was just totally flipping out on your set. What was the band that you guys wore the hoods?
Oh, yeah, the Hangman's Curse.
Hangman's Curse, thank you. I even have a T-shirt. I really, really enjoyed that project.
Yeah.
It seems that you only did a handful of shows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I believe that you had some material. Didn't you have a record?
I did have a few demos that I put out with that.
Okay.
I've had that. I mean, that project since 2011, 2012.
Wow. Yeah.
And I still haven't put out a full length with that.
You played Iron Fist Fest with Igniter, and Vesperian played, I think, as well.
I want to say they did, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that was the one with Hellstar.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Aggravator. Shit. Some like 3 Houston bands.
That was at Texas Mist. I know that.
It was at Texas Mist, yeah.
Maybe Militia played. I want to say maybe Militia played too.
Yeah, I think they did. I think they played outside. And you guys played outside. Hangman's Curse. So trying to describe, let me see if I can describe that project to Dave. Dave, have you heard of Hangman's Curse?
I saw it in Logan's bio, and I saw some photos, so I saw
Right.
the aesthetic and everything, but I haven't heard.
Yeah. Is it a 3-piece band and you played guitar? Is that right?
Plays bass, I think.
I was playing bass. I started off playing guitar. I've had so many different band members join that. And
thank God for the hoods, right? You can replace the.
It was kind of like my idea to create the first like spaghetti western, metal band, which I think I was successful in doing. And it was way back when, and we started just doing a handful of shows in the San Marcos area. And but I was I grew up watching a lot of Italian westerns, and I preferred those over the American ones. Because they're way grittier, and just these random movies like Blind Man and Keoma. And Blind Man had Ringo Starr in it, and Keoma, Franco Nero, and some of the music really stuck with me. There was a certain sound, and one of my favorite composers at the time, of course, was Ennio. But I really started falling in love with the Bruno Nicolai stuff. And I was like, who's the other guy that does that? Like, that's the stuff. So I kind of was heavily influenced by Bruno Nicolai and this series of movie called Sartana. And some of the Django movies. Sorry, I live right by a train, so you'll hear that. They've been blowing their horn.
That's all right.
But talking about country western stuff, and an old train comes by,
perfect.
I like. I mean, close to a lot of like unofficial Django movies. There are like 100, close to 100 of those, and the idea where you have a character that's almost supernatural that carries a coffin around.
Wow.
So that's kind of what I wanted to project, this idea. And since, I've been living in Texas my entire life, I thought it would be appropriate. But it was a fun little thing. We got to do some interesting, we played with Mortis.
Okay.
And that was a fun little set because his stuff is all keyboards, and we got to play, and we're doing this weird spaghetti western doomy stuff, epic doom stuff. Then who else did we did the Iron Fist Fest. I'm thinking about notable shows.
Right.
And a few other ones. I want to say that we were supposed to do some with War Beast back before Bruce had gotten real sick, so, and he was a fan of that project too.
The point I was making was that it quickly became one of my favorite. I was trying to make it trend, and I
oh, thanks.
Yeah, I was running into the venue, into the inside at that Iron Fist Fest, and pulling my friends out. You got to come see this shit right now. And I pulled Mike from Militia in there, and I had him watching. He was getting off on it too. We watched your entire set.
Oh, wow.
After your first song, and it was the weirdest, coolest shit that I had seen in a long fucking time, because, and you just mentioned it, it was like, okay, you're wearing hoods, so you can't see there's no it's lack of human, right? You're alienating yourself on purpose. You are creating this minor chord seated in bluesy country, but it's doom metal, and satirical, not really laughable to me. I wasn't laughing. I mean, I was probably grinning ear to ear, but it was epic, and it was the strangest shit I had seen, and I've never seen anything remotely close to it as far as the spectacle that it was.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
you know, guys in cowboy hats and like basically priest robes and hoods playing this doomy spaghetti, clean guitar, spaghetti western, but then going into this like sort of plodding doom shit. What are some of the song titles? What was your content about in
Let's
Hangman's
see.
Curse?
Well, there's one called The Trails Without End. There's one called 2 Long Years of Blood-Stained Gold.
Wow.
Another one.
That's a movie title.
Yeah, well, that's what they are. They're very similar to how a movie would, like those old spaghetti western titles are just, you know, um, have a good funeral, my friend. That's a spaghetti western title. But one of them was similar to that. I think it was. I kept changing the names. That's my problem. I'm so ADHD at times where I keep changing things and they can never be perfected. But I did have one called "The Past Is a Woman and I Buried Her at Dawn."
Wow.
And A Stranger Never Lost.
Love it.
Yeah, there's a few in there that they just have that long, epic, you know, spaghetti. I think something Beware for the Hangman is Coming, something like that. There was just things that I can't remember off the top of my head. And they're my songs. It's funny. But yeah, I strove for that idea, you know. But I would change them so often because I was trying to reach that point where I'm like, this is what it is. And I think when you saw it, that was kind of like the peak of what it was supposed to be. And then after that, we really didn't do too much. Pandemic hit, and it was just like, let me focus on other things, and joined Vesperian and put that on the back burner.
Well, that's too bad because for someone like having, I don't know, a Halloween party or something, you guys would have been so perfect.
Oh yeah.
For that. And the cool thing is about a project like that is you could have played with power metal bands, black metal bands, rock and roll bands, and I think that it would have like gelled with whatever sort of motif the club might be or the package might be going for.
Yeah.
And that's rare. You know, my band Broken Teeth was kind of like that. We played with metal bands and we played with blues rock bands, and it was just 4 on the floor rock and roll, but it was kind of scary at the same time. And I feel like you guys had a lot of element that lent itself to what I described. You could play, if anything like sort of loud rock, you guys would have worked. And not everybody you can give that review if it's a review that it carries over. Like not every rock band can play with a death metal band or a black metal band because the mixture of listener might not work as well. But I think that Hangman's Curse had, I don't want to call it gimmick, but you had enough dressing to work with a lot of different things, and that it's rare. That's where I'm going with it. It's rare whenever I see an act like that, I'm like, this is fucking great. It was like, and you know, you think about bands that wear the hoods. I've seen like super dark, you know, cathedral kind of doomy shit, not Cathedral the band, but just, you know, long notes, you know, they'll have a synthesizer and they're all wearing, you know, similar get up, you know, they're wearing hoods and robes and it's just they're dressed like monks, you know, or something. Yeah. And then of course you've got Midnight that makes it super popular now. Mm-hmm. And they're fucking amazing, but they're Venom meets Motorhead. So that's rock and roll. I mean, Venom and Motorhead, I mean, it's rock and roll, but once again, proves what I'm saying is like with that sort of aesthetic, they can, you know, and Midnight plays with old power metal bands and thrash bands and death metal bands, and it fucking works fantastic. Not that anybody stole anybody's idea. It just makes me think of the Mentors, which are not appropriate for every audience ever.
No. But they're fun.
Yeah, they are fun. And the idea of the hoods with half-naked old men wearing hoods playing toilet, you know, South Park's favorite band, you know, because it's just toilet humor, seemed to carry over. I can't think of anybody else that was, anyway, something like that was, you know, entirely different, but related to so many different things. I just thought was genius. And I want to commend you once again for,
I appreciate it.
For having such a really cool mind that, you know, is not like everybody's mind. I mean, so yeah, you're appreciated for the things that you come up with. And I feel like you could probably write novels and movies.
Well, I'm working on stuff like that. I mean,
I'm just assuming that you are. It's one of the reasons I wanted to have you as a guest as well. So I'm glad that we started chatting about it.
Yeah,
can you tell us?
We did a good show with I remember with Cloven Hoof, which that was an important thing for me. It's Cloven Hoof, but with the Hangman's Curse,
right?
Two completely opposite bands, but it was more to me about vanity. It was just like, I really want to play with Cloven Hoof.
Right.
You know, I got their records, you know, and I love, you know, they're on my NWBHM bucket list, you know.
Yeah, they're one of those underground new wave of British heavy metal bands that not every fan of that genre knows about or has a full record by. They might have them on a compilation or something. And I think George Call was the singer.
Yeah, he was
for a while, and he's a Texan. He's from here, and Clovenhoof is English.
No,
so,
he still hits me up. He's still trying to get more Hangman's Curse merchandise from me. So.
Oh, really? See, so it's not just me and Mike Solis and Bruce Corbett. It's a lot of us saw it and got it.
Yeah.
Really, really, really fun. So you're working on some novellas, you've got some long-winded rants that turn into movie scripts. What do you got?
I guess so. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that like, I'm so busy that I'm trying to like do several things at the same time, where if I could find a place to do it at, I could probably do something. Like I was like, well, let me develop small projects that if I come across a good location, I can call 2 or 3 people and we can get something going with that. If that becomes fruitful, where I'm able to say, oh, well, people liked it, then maybe that can expand and I can create something with a bigger budget. That's essentially what I'm doing, and trying to weigh out what's, you know, a Roger Corman sort of thing, where let me focus on something with a low budget first, the cheapest of the cheap, you know, and take that to, and using like maybe a fan film or something to that degree, where if people are receptive to it on YouTube, I can get something funded for something bigger. You like this, you know, how about this is what I really want to do. If you like that, something like that will reflect on it. So,
right.
But yeah, you know, those are different things that I'm looking at. The Vesperian thing, it's I already have it all written out pretty much. So the 2 other albums and the side albums that go along with it. That's why I spent so much time, you know, racking my brain for 4 years, because I kind of wanted to be a one and done. So when the guys are ready to go at it again, I was like, all right, I already got the concept and idea and some of the song titles ready for this. So kind of like when they filmed Back to the Future 2 and 3 at the same time, you know, it's you have it already kind of planned out, you know.
Yeah, you know, it's
efficient.
It's interesting that you just jarred my brain a lot. I thought for a long time that Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman were recorded at the same time, but they were not.
The what? Sorry, you cut off a little bit.
In my mind, I recently found out that, and I thought this for years, that Ozzy Osbourne's Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman were recorded at the same time, and they were not.
Oh,
so this thing that you have going with Vesperian, where you have like ultimately this one and then 2 other records, not in the can, but you pretty much have your concepts pre-written.
Yeah.
Makes just for some reason made me think about, you know, everything done at the same time. And you mentioned Back to the Future 2 and 3. Do you think that possible, is it possible that could muddle the idea to record two records or make 2 movies in the same I mean, you're like on set for 2 years or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it could, but at the same time, it does take a long time to develop the ideas for certain things and bridge. Like I'm a stickler for for canonical like cohesiveness. So things need to make sense for me.
Yeah.
So I spent a lot of time rewriting. I'm like, nope, and writing diagrams and things like that, maps. And if it doesn't make sense, I had to, like, last minute, I had to change the spelling of a particular song so it could match the narrative. The spelling,
Right.
just the spelling. If I have the framework for the idea and where the story's going to go already planned out, it's less time for me to actually have to like focus for like 10 hours straight and,
Wow.
and try to like write and draw stuff out. So it helps out a little bit. Now, I'm just saying I'm a planner, but it could be completely different. We could decide to say, we're going to go in a completely different direction. And that's kind of what one of the ideas was being thrown around recently was that, well, we want to go back to this kind of black metal. And I'm like, cool. I already thought about that, potential idea, that possibility. So I already have like a whole side storyline that ties into the universe to that. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So I got that going. And then they have old material that had never been put out, like an album and a half worth of material for that's a lot more melodic sounding. I'm like, I already have ideas that are going to be for that for 2 EPs for a side story that's not involving like the main characters. And they're like, cool, that works out. So we are now at a point where it's like they spent a lot of time just in between these albums, just like, I guess, like perfecting what they had. But now it's at a point where like, we really need to put this stuff out. I don't want to wait that long, 12 years or whatever.
Do you feel like, and I'm not asking you to talk shit about your brothers here, but but do you feel like, I mean, because I talk about procrastination. Some of my projects haven't put out a record in 4 years or more.
Yeah.
So do you feel like, if there's no deadline, do you feel like it's a danger to wait that long?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you need to have. I need to set deadlines for myself.
Yeah,
because it's something that I keep looking. I don't think that's going to work. But yeah, no, I think that you definitely have to do put those deadlines on, and you may not meet them, and you can be flexible. It's all right as long as you're giving yourself a little bit of space to kind of work with yourself, and yourself. You know how you can react, or you can work with those deadlines.
Well,
don't kill yourself. Don't kill yourself if you don't meet them.
It's other people's calendars as well, which is usually the issue. It's if you can get the material, meaning the band or the music, say you're the main lyricist in any project, it can be just putting the music together for the lyricist to be able to have, a footprint to land on top of. And then, it's a logistic nightmare sometimes, as everybody knows. Dave knows. Dave's a journalist. He knows if there's a deadline, he's got to stay up all night and get it done.
Yeah.
So,
and I do work, better with a deadline, because otherwise, to Logan's point, I will rewrite it, wake up tomorrow, rewrite it again, because if you're given that time, you'll always find ways in your mind, at least, to improve it, or so you think. So it's hard to, just shut yourself down unless somebody is demanding that you shut down, or time is running out or whatever.
Some of the best advice that was given to me with regards to that was from in one of my it was he was a professor at UT. He was an art professor, But I went to Texas State, and he was one of my painting teachers, Perry Smith. Logan, you know what your problem is that you just keep working on all your stuff and you can never find a stopping point, and you need to leave your shit alone. And he said, like, leave your shit alone. It's done. Yeah. And so I showed him stuff. I was like, it's almost done, but this one is done. This one you could use another, couple of days on, but that's it. Don't go further. That's find a stopping point. And so find a goddamn stopping point,
I've heard people say, when is a piece of art done?
Right.
When do you know that it's done?
Yeah,
exactly. And I don't think the artists themselves, that's what I'm saying. I don't think the artists themselves, given the opportunity, will probably tweak it forever. It almost requires an external deadline to tell you it's done, because it's just in your nature to kind of always massage it and make it a little better or a little different, or you woke up this morning and now you have a different perspective on it. So you try to, align it with that. So I can completely appreciate the need for an external deadline.
I think in the world of, for lack of a term, pop culture, popular, art, it took me a long time to learn this, but letting the song or the piece of art or the piece of literature you're writing or whatever, let whatever it is, let it become what it's trying to become. Otherwise, you'll be a ranting madman just for days and just going and throwing stuff away and going. You see, like, scenes in movies where there's a creator and they keep wadding up paper and there's a montage and this shitty Huey Lewis song going on in the background, want a new drug, and you're trying to, and it's shit is real. So I learned a long time ago that you have to just let it. Is this a butt rock song? Okay, let it be a butt rock song. Is this, a thrash metal song? Let it be a thrash metal. Don't try to. That's where that whole shit comes in, don't reinvent the wheel. Yeah. Let the wheel be the wheel. And whatever this thing is, are you making is this a chocolate chip cookie? Is this a banana cream pie? Let it be whatever it is trying to be and taste like, so you can move on to something else. And I think that you struggle with that, Logan. I think that it's something.
I do.
Yeah, well, we all do. And
ADHD, man, I tell you.
I was going to say, I think all creative people are like that too, to some degree or another. I was going to say, when you were talking about the person going crazy and wadding up paper and everything, my family gets really nervous when we start watching The Shining around Halloween. Because they liken me to the Jack Nicholson character in The Shining, kind of this guy that's about to go insane, as a writer that's about to lose his mind. But I can totally relate to that. Logan, I wanted to ask you. There's a couple things. You were kind enough to send us some bullet points in an email, and there was a couple things that jumped out at me. I wanted to ask about this band Complete that you. Okay. I hit a nerve. I hit a nerve. Okay, so you admit that this is probably one of the worst bands of all time, but you're a part of this band, and apparently the band Gwar is big fans of this band Complete. So tell me about Complete. Mostly, I want to know, why do you think it's one of the worst bands ever?
It's not that I think that. I know that. It's but they are the best.
But they're the best. Okay. How do you reconcile that?
I want to say around like 2005 or 6. I came across them on YouTube, and we were hanging out. I was actually hanging out with this guy, Kieran McCloskey, used to play in this band Vex way back when, and I was in a band, Vows and Ashes, and so a couple of my buddies there and we found this video on YouTube, and this footage that came out from the mid-90s of this band that was just so odd sounding, and it was it was this group of middle-aged men performing in what looks to be a bingo hall, and it sounds like all their instruments are off, just the perfect disaster, and the singer of that band is just so, I mean, off key and missing teeth, and his hair's in a perm. But he's so passionate, and he's doing these amazing stage moves that it's just weaving around the stage, not caring what's going on. It's just a beautiful piece of art, you know, the whole thing put together. And it was, I remember just being stricken with just amazement and wonder. And so I became obsessed with them naturally. They had thousands and thousands of views. You know, people were putting these comments like greatest band of all time. You know, so I found out that these guys were out of Fort Worth. So I I found what the guy's name was during the MySpace days, and I found that this gentleman's name was Curtis Brumbelow. And I was able to find his number, and I called him, and I essentially convinced him to get the band back together, and I brought him over to Austin a few years later and became good friends with him. And after about, I don't know, 9, they had been playing every South by Southwest. And they're just a strange group of guys. They're kind of like, Kurt was the main vocalist of it. It was kind of, you know, whenever I'd hang out with him, it'd be like hanging out with Rocky Erickson, but with more drugs. And it was just an adventure with him. And they, like I said, from 2009 on to 2000, I want to say 19 or 20, before the pandemic, they had done every South by Southwest. And I asked Kurt, how are you getting on these South bys? Like, I had several bands that have been trying to go, oh, they just call me. I'm like, what do you mean they call you? They just call me. So, and I'm like, who calls you? What? Some guy, we're on there. And it's always turned out that they were playing at some nice place or whatever. Like, so they had their fans. They had, it was like this underground cult fan following for this band, Complete. I think I met one of the guys that worked with at Pandora Radio. You know, he was a huge fan. So one day I was friends with Casey, and he had just rejoined Gwar. Mm-hmm. And I remember going to this one venue in Austin. I forget the name. The one off of like 7th Street, around that area, or Red River, around Red River. Mm-hmm. And Gwar was playing, and so they're doing this whole bit. And it's mimicking Complete's stage banter. And I was like, wait a minute. And so I called, you know, after the show, I'm calling Casey. I'm like, dude, was that Complete you guys were doing there? Old Complete stuff? And he goes, yeah, the guys are fans of Complete. I'm like, Casey, you know, I play in that band. I was like, no, you don't. And I'm like, yeah, Casey, I play in fucking Complete. Like, I've been. Everyone from Gwar was like, hey guys, Logan, my friend Logan, he's incomplete. And they all came over and like taking pictures with me and asking me questions. So wow. Like, yeah. So Gwar loves Complete. They have a weird following. Complete's got weird stories. They were saying that they were for a long time trying to get Complete at the Gwarbecue. But it was so difficult for, you know, to get Complete to respond or something to that degree, you know. I'm like, well, it makes sense. Yeah, it's Complete. They're just, you know, but yeah, they're I know there was like 1 or 2 documentaries like being made of them. I do know that one of the editors from Texas Monthly was excited because Kurt went over to the Texas Monthly just to take pictures there. And the editor came down because she knew of who he was, and she got excited and started taking pictures with Kurt. But yeah, sadly, Kurt passed away not too long ago, a couple of years ago. So Complete is no longer.
Incomplete.
Incomplete. They're incomplete.
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 Right.
But yeah, there's a lot of material that I still have that I've been wanting to put out. I do have some acapella stuff that I recorded on my phone with Kurt.
Wow.
It's just I'll continue to put out complete treasures. For the next few decades, I guess, you know, just little surprises, because there are fans that, you know, people out there that were just hitting me up. But it's an interesting listen. They're just one of those, they became a YouTube thing, you know, one of those YouTube phenomena that still to this day, a lot of people can't explain are they trolling people? Are they, are they just who they are? And their music, when you're listening to it, sometimes it sounds like old Captain Beefheart, like Trout Mask replica stuff. And it's so people are like, what's their time signature? What are they doing? And you ask Kurt, and I said, Kurt, what were you going for? What are you trying to do? And he's like, oh, I'm just trying to sound like Van Halen. I'm like, God damn.
Off by a mile, but
yeah. And he was that on their most favorite famous show. He has this haircut, like this perm, and he said he was pissed off at it because he was trying to get at the time the Sammy Hagar do, Right. He said his sister did it for him before the show, and it's I'm trying to look like Sammy Hagar up on stage, but I'm not a Van Hagar fan.
Well, people are going to have to look them up because I never heard of them until I saw that in your email, and I was immediately intrigued when you were so emphatic about it being the worst band in the world. I'm like, I got to ask them.
The best, worst band. But, it's probably one of my proudest moments, It's like I never got to play South by Southwest until I played with Complete.
Yeah.
With all the projects and all the things I had done. And it's something that to me, it's a special kind of like, it's what is music and what is art, and if these guys are doing something like this, it kind of begs to question, what are we doing with with our lives? What is all this that we're trying to push for and aim for? But I describe it as like deconstructionism, they deconstruct everything that what we perceive to be. And I've known a couple of people that have degrees in music, and I showed them Complete, and they're just divided on it. Some of them are just like spellbound by it, and others are insulted by it.
Right.
This is horrible. What the hell, man? And they're so mad about it.
Something that puts it in a little bit of perspective with you sharing your feelings about, I never played South by Southwest until I was in the worst band in the world, right? Kind of a thing, or whatever.
Yeah.
Hundreds and hundreds of artists send their demo material in and their registration fees to South by Southwest every year. So South by Southwest, just on registration fees for someone trying to get an intern to press play on material and, vet all of these artists, they take their $20 registration fee only to call them and say, nope, sorry. We've listened to your material and we think that it's not, sorry, try again next year. And this this has been happening for years and years and years and years and years. And South by's probably made millions of dollars off of this racket, if you will. And I'm not to sound crass, but the where I'm going with the story is people who submit their registration fee and their latest demo or their new record or whatever, only to get shut down or told another no, rejection letter kind of a vibe. Hey Kurt, how'd you get in South by, man? I want to get in South by. He goes, oh man, they just call me.
They just call me.
Yeah, they just call me.
Yeah.
So this will give a reality check to how it really works. And then you go to the oracle, the scholar, and play them complete, and they're either can justify what's happening, that it's be this quirky, you mentioned time signature, and obviously it's not just rock and roll, it's this mathematical fucking Frankenstein. And also this quirky, it's what kind of music is that can be appreciated by a scholar or someone who knows music. It could be, from Disney pop princess to the craziest jazz shit ever, and meet in between and go, oh yeah, that's interesting. And then someone else would be like, tighten their tie and go, that's noise, and walk on by.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's more than likely a bunch of guys that decided to make a band in their mid-30s and they had no idea how to play instruments, but and they got high and they got fucked up and they decided to go up on some stage and do that in front of a bunch of people, which is wonderful. They're just like, hey, y'all think you got a band? This is what we're gonna do. All right.
Right.
And there's someone in the audience, if you listen closely on one of the videos, and the singer, Kurt, is so confident, and he goes, y'all ready for this one? And someone just yells out, fuck him. And he goes, hey, you say no, but listen to this.
Right.
And they just started off. And it's just that confidence that they have and joy, you know. It's brought a lot of, I had a lot of people that actually, when Kurt died, people had messaged me, you know, their condolences, you know, and I told them they complete brought me so much joy, you know.
Wow,
call it what it is, you know, but at least, you know, they did that for a lot of people. You know?
That's what it's about anyway.
Yeah, it is. It's what can you do? Can you entertain people? Can you create this thing to kind of vex them too, you know?
Well, you know, people are going to say the same thing about the Butthole Surfers.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when you think about what the Butthole Surfers, when they first started out, to me, it kind of feels like it was somewhere on the same planet as Complete.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they called the name the Butthole Surfers gives you the first inkling, you know.
Right. Right. I think we all scratched our heads, you know, the first time we heard Butthole Surfers or Mr. Bungle or as you mentioned earlier, Captain Beefheart, you know, that stuff that just sort of is a melting pot of all these seemingly disparate elements, and then someone has the balls to put it together and throw it at you, you know?
Yeah.
And your reaction is like, oh, I've never been here before. I don't know what to make of this. You either love it or hate it, or you're afraid of it, or you think it's genius, you know, one or the other. The other thing that caught my attention was, I got to ask you, you said there's a funny story about eating barbecue with the band Vader.
Yeah. Okay, so there was you know, I shouldn't mention too many names, but I'll say my old guitarist Marco, I was in this I always tell people I was in a Polish death metal band, which for the most part everyone was Polish. But they're out of Chicago, Polish immigrants, and Marco Martel was in Malevolent Creation at the time, and so we brought him into the band. Varian, I love Varian. He's like a brother to me. But Varian is good friends with Peter from Vader, and he basically made that connection to where he can get Marco, our new guitarist, into Vader, at least for like a little tour. And I think that's when they were playing with Overkill. I want to say maybe about 2012 or so. You know, and they had stopped by Austin. I said, fuck it, man. You guys are hungry. I'll go take y'all to get some barbecue. And so we're ordering barbecue, and these guys, they loved it. They're just like, and I think they had gotten like a second helping or whatever. So I'm watching them play stage, and they had like, they're sweating profusely. Afterwards, they told me that they had just like this uncontrollable diarrhea because of the barbecue. I was like, yeah, you eat too much of all that sugar and barbecue. So they're like, they're not used to it. They're from Poland, you know, it's all like, you know, you get a lot of potato stuff and all that. But when you have all this greasy brisket, and that was kind of my fault, you know, I just wanted to show them, you know, some good Texas barbecue. Yeah. But they're like, yeah, you know, this is we're holding it and squeezing assholes in our stage, you know, and holding it in tight so we are not exploding in pants. Yeah.
That's a good one. I had to ask about that because that jumped right out at me.
That stuff happens on stage where you're like, oh, am I gonna have to take a piss? Am I gonna go? What's, you know? So I always try to, like, every time before a show, I'm like, I try not to eat heavy at all, you know, not too much coffee, plenty of water, but not too much where you have to go piss on stage, enough to where you know you're going to sweat it out, you know?
Yeah.
Don't drink a lot of beer. You know, there's a whole thing. I don't know if you got that, Jason, but, you know.
Well, this is a good sort of performer's advice. Make it as generic as possible. There's a window, and sure, everybody's different. But for the most part, I give myself a minimum of 2 hours before I perform. where I don't eat. I'm not drinking a lot of water. You know, it's sure I wet my whistle, but that's really it. You know, I can drink as long as I'm not slamming. Oh, I gotta hydrate. No, you know, if you're dehydrated, it's too late. You can't just slam a bunch of water. You know, that's not how that works. Is the quarterback going to go, timeout, I have to pee? No. Yeah. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
So I you know, give myself at least a 2-hour window. I know some performers don't, they give themselves like 4 hours before they have to play. I guess it's mainly singers that, because, you know, it's, if you're guts full of barbecue, if you will, and then you're going to try to sing. I mean, all that barbecue is pressing against your rib cage, pressing on your lungs. You've got no air. Does a basketball player eat, you know, 2 pounds of barbecue right before he goes on the court? No. So
I mean, it's hard when you're on tour. You're eating a lot of shit. Like, you're eating the worst food that's available to you. You don't know what like little like shithole town that you're gonna land in, you know. And it's whatever they got. Is it that one Dairy Queen that's gonna be there? Is it that one Waffle House? You know, and what greasy food are you? And that's the only thing you're gonna have for the next like day or so, you know. And sometimes people will invite you to their house, like, hey, we got food at the house. Like, I don't know if I want the food at your house. You know, I don't know who you are, who's been touching the food, you know, but it's always that, you know, come on over, we got food.
Well, believe it or not, sometimes it's safer. Sometimes it's safer to eat at the barbecue, at the Dairy Queen.
Yeah, it is.
Sometimes it's safer to eat, to buy a loaf of bread than it is to eat what's available there. Anyway, giving yourself at least a window so you're not having to, you know, so an accident doesn't happen while you're, whether it be wherever it's going to come out, you need to prepare for that not to happen as best you can.
Yeah.
So
I do remember that stage at what's it called, at Old Emo's, that stage at outside. You know, so imagine them, they're playing there. That, you know, they're on that stage trembling, you know, and it's just gyrating their gut, you know, the whole time, man. Like, I still feel bad, you know.
Cold shivers.
Yeah. Oh, that's the worst, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I played that stage a few times. I didn't like it.
You're tensing up and you have cold shivers. That's not a good look.
Yeah. Yeah, it isn't. It is. I don't know, but it also depends on the band you're playing with. If I'm just playing bass and we're playing some sloppy, you know, whatever sloppy music, then I'll have a few beers on stage, you know.
Well, that's a different kind of a mindset. But if it's some kind of authentic and that has any math to it, and it's vigorous on your body, the performance, you know, the whatever it is you're putting your body through, much like an athlete, you need to be careful about when you eat and what you eat at all times the day of performance. That's all. It's not a law. It's just some good round advice. And you'll hear a lot of people, that's why you see skinny ballerina. For the same fucking reason, I guess, you know, when you think about it.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, where can people go and listen and buy, better to buy the new Vesperian Sorrow?
Okay, so right now you can go on our label's website, Black Lion out of Sweden. They have the whole Bandcamp set up, so you can order this. I think there's a CD T-shirt combo right now.
Okay, cool.
So that's the best place to get that. They got a few other albums you can get because they did reissue, I think, Regen. You can get those too if you want. You know, I might talk to Oliver. He's a really great guy. He's our, you know, he's the one that runs a label at Black Lion. So, you know, he was interested in getting some back catalog. I'm like, why not do, you know, the whole set, you know, get it all together. But for right now, you can get it. I mean, you could go to Target also, target.com. And I think on Walmart, I think they have the album there too. Amazon, you know, wherever. You could stream it if you want on YouTube for free. You know, you can go on Spotify, stream the whole thing too also. So it's there. I know, but through the label we do have t-shirts available. There's like some sort of like package deal. So
but you can buy the CD and the record is available now.
We're working on the record. We haven't, well, the CD's out already.
Oh, okay.
So the CD's out. Record, we'll be working on that. We're probably going to set up a store, like independently. We're going to be doing that, setting up a shop or something to where we can sell.
So you're doing a vinyl release separate.
I want to do
label.
a vinyl release. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm set on that. I want to do vinyl. I want to do cassettes too.
Oh, cool.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm doing something that's like very retro looking, you know, a lot of the stuff is very retro based, you know, thematically it's different, you know, it's very old school sci-fi. So I want to have that feel and then, you know, compile some videos in a VHS, you know, do all sorts of stuff like that.
Cool. Awaken the Greylight is the name of the latest release. You can find it basically anywhere, including Target and Walmart.
Sounds like Bandcamp is where.
And Bandcamp, yeah.
Yeah. Black Lion Records out of Sweden. Just go on their site and you can find it there.
Right on.
Very cool.
On. Cool, man. Logan, thank you so much for spending time with us today, man. It was great to get to know you a little bit. You've got a rich history in music here in Central Texas, and it was fun getting to hear some of your stories and check out your new album. Awaken the Greylight is the latest from Vesperian Sorrow, folks. Check that out. Check it out on Black Lion Records. You can find it online almost anywhere. Logan, thank you so much for your time. On behalf of my co-host, Jason McMaster, I'm Metal Dave Glessner, along with our special guest today, Logan from Vesperian Sorrow.